Part 3, Chinese quads. All right, so this is the one of the two I got last week, since that one is running now. Moving on to this one. This is the one with a broken off shifter for forward and reverse. Before I can order the shaft, there are two shafts. There's a type 1 and type 2. Because when I got this one, the chain was off, and I know why. It's because if I put the chain back on, I can't roll it because it is stuck in either forward or reverse, and I can't shift it. So what I'm gonna do, so that I can order the right part for it. Oh, by the way, it also had a bad key switch. So I ordered another key switch for that. And this one has the big nut, which doesn't want to come off, so I have to cut the nut off. But yeah, bad ignition switch. So I guess just having it there in that area where water can splash into it, and some of them even have a little cap that holds the water in. It gets those contacts inside there green, so then you start losing contact with your ignition, and then you lose your spark. So since this engine, I'm going to drop the engine, and I have to take off the side cover and see what shaft I need to order. They're not too expensive. I think they're less than $30, maybe even $15. But on this one, the master cylinder is bad. I put a new master cylinder on it. Got it cheap off eBay. Had to shorten the shaft because it's a universal. But now I have brakes, very good brakes, by the way. I bled all the old fluid out of it, but now brakes work very well. But I've got to drop this engine out to see what kind of shaft I can order. Okay, pulled the engine out of this one. Pretty simple, just unhook the carb slide, the starter wire, unplug the stator. So it's just the two bolts. One right there and one right there. And the whole thing pulled out because the chain was already unhooked. So what I'm gonna do in order to get this one running right away so the kids can ride, when I bought the Breeze, that's the motor that came with it. He just threw it in and it was just missing the carburetor. But that one, I'll throw that one in there. So while I'm waiting for parts on that reverse forward neutral shaft, then we can at least have that one riding. So still jumping on that one next, but I'm gonna mount this motor in and see if we have spark. Got the other motor mounted with the two bolts. Got the brake pedal back on. Gonna put the carburetor and intake manifold on it. Pull the stator cover off because these wires were cut. So I'm gonna plug those back in because I do have a test plug for that now. And I want it to plug into its stator plug because it has the 5 pins. I was looking at the other motor, but I suspect the only reason they stopped riding this is because they broke the shaft off. So I did pull this side cover off, cleaned it out. And this shifter shaft for the forward neutral reverse rod is the longer one because the other one I see online doesn't have this connection here, which kicks the clutch off when you're shifting. So when that handle is pulled, all it does is move it one way or the other, just like the regular shifters. But all this comes off, this comes off. Once you take off this plate, there's a nut with a lock plate underneath this. I just ordered a socket on eBay to take that off. Once this clutch comes off, this gear comes off, and then I should be able to pull that whole shifter shaft out and replace it with a replacement. So it's going to have to need a side cover gasket and I might just JB weld that hole back up after I patch it up a little bit. But yeah, this motor is the good one. But right now we're gonna test that one to see if that one works. So let's see what happens. I was gonna try to get that one working, but let's work on this one just to get this one out of the way and get this engine running. Since it should be ready to go, it just won't have reverse. I've got the chain back on it. I put the sprocket on it from the other motor. And it also has a new seat like this one. So let's continue on. Okay, this is where I am with this now. Today, different day. Fixed all the wires. I had to put some heat shrink and add a little section of wire to each one because they were too short after somebody chopped them off. Just remember, before you solder any of these wires, especially old copper, you got to scrape them. So I have a razor blade, I just drag across all the copper. It's got to be shiny and clean, or else your solder will not stick. Just so you know. So, just got my $20 battery in the mail yesterday. It's an AGM. And, man, some of those batteries are a lot more than $20. Okay, so, right now, this test line I have, this shows me if I hook to the positive with a lead and then touch anywhere on the frame, which is grounded, I get a green light, okay? If I were to put this metal clip on the positive and then touch anything hot, the light turns red to show the 12 volts. So right now, any place I touch with a ground, if it's grounded, let's get a ground, I get a green light. So, what I'm gonna do, we're gonna check for spark. I've got the spark plug hooked up to the coil. One thing I did, you pull your CDI plug off, and that center pin at the bottom, there's only one pin in the middle. That is your kill wire. So, I hook to this, the kill wire, and I don't get a green light, okay? So anything green means one of my kill switches is on. Whether the ignition switch is turned off, that kill wire is pulled out, that tether, the kill switch on the handlebar, if any one of those is shorted to ground, which means you want to kill the spark to shut off the engine, this one wire would be grounded. So what I did was I hooked on here, and I noticed I had a dim green light. When I flipped the switches on, I would get a bright green light, but I was getting a dim green light, and I narrowed it down to the remote start, remote kill alarm system, which like I showed in the diagram, when your key switch is turned off, it's sending a little bit of power to this unit, waiting for the remote to get the start signal or to get bumped before it sends the siren on, turns the siren on. But this, I saw online, this is also known to drain your battery if you don't ride for a while. It's just like your car, your alarm system and your remote, like waiting for a power lock or unlock signal, or the stereo saving your stations. It's a parasitic draw. This is also a parasitic draw that'll kill your battery if you leave it plugged in. So I left it unplugged because this one didn't come with a remote anyway. I could buy a whole nother box. I think they're $12 for the remote start. That plugs into these TaoTaos. It would plug right back into the plug where I unplugged it. But let's see if we have spark now. That's all plugged in. I might have to change this plastic part because somebody broke off the lock, or I'll zip tie that. But I should be able to see the spark down there if the coil's good and the CDI is good. So the key is on. Foot has to be on a brake, because if the foot is not on the brake, either there or up here, these wires, remember, supply power to your start switch. If you're not holding the brake, like right now, the start doesn't do anything. So when I push on the brake, I should be able to start. And let's see if we have spark. So let's zoom in on the spark plug. And I'm gonna hit the start button. Good spark. So that means my stator's good, my CDI's good, and my kill circuit is off. So now we're gonna get one of these carburetors. This is a new intake I just bought for the motor before I decided to use it on this one, because the other one's still on the other motor with this broken shaft. This carburetor was on one of the little Kazumas that I bought that was too big for it. It wouldn't idle. So I took it off and cleaned it, and I put another brand new, the PZ19 carburetor on it. So we're gonna put this one on it since I have spark, and let's see if this thing runs. All right, I was about to try starting this thing, and I realized the muffler was still off. So the foot guard just has a couple screws in. I've got a whole plastic screw kit ordered from eBay, but I don't have the screws yet, so it's just in there temporarily with those two, even though it gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more before I can put that side on. And then I also have screws for that. I think I ordered 20. So I noticed I measured the diameter of the exhaust. I was going to cut these off as make them studs, but I'm waiting for the little exhaust donut. It's a little ring that you get off eBay, but I measured that. It's 32 millimeters in diameter, so I want to make sure I get the right ring. And then I'm going to cut off these nuts, these heads, and just use lock nuts and get these to where I have the right length. I didn't want to cut them off yet because I don't know how thick that little ring is that's going to go in there. It looks like a brass O-ring or something. All right, so everything is hooked up. I've got the carburetor screwed down. Had new gaskets for that. Air cleaner's going on. I dunked it in gas, and I'll spray it with a little bit of oil, but I didn't want to put it on yet because I've got some starting fluid in case I need it. About to start this, so the key is on. I was talking about the key switch before, how the ones I bought were too small for the hole. So I just took it apart and cleaned all the contacts and put it back together. So the key's on, got the throttle hooked up. Like I showed, this button doesn't work unless I pull the brake. But since I'm holding the camera, my phone in one hand, let's use the foot brake on this side and see if this thing fires. Key's on. This has to be on. Oop, look at that. Idle's a little high because let it go, so we're going to turn down the idle a little bit. We don't want it to try to drag the clutch. That's it. So that's that free motor I got with the Breeze. Well, not exactly free, but got it with the Breeze. Got to adjust the clutch a little bit. Get that screw down there because it's trying to go. But it looks like this one's ready to go. Put the air cleaner on it. bit. This carburetor didn't come with this engine. Okay, let's see if the lights work. Oh, look at that. High beams and low beams. Yeah, so the grandkids will be happy to ride this one. We'll put the seat on it, put the air cleaner on it, maybe take it for a spin. And pretty cool that it runs. Alright, so let me button this one up. Remember, I'm waiting for the engine shaft, the shifter shaft for the other engine that came in this, so that there's a reverse. And that's all I'm waiting on, but this is my spare engine. Okay, so these two are ready to go. I'm gonna close this video out and we'll work on the Baja 90 next. But this one looks like it's working. So close this one out. So this was the $200 one. I think this was the $100 one because it needed the axle work. But now they're both running. And on to the next one.